Mincio sat in the back corner of the English classroom at Riverside High School. Her desk was old and covered with scratches from students who had sat there before her. She held her pencil tightly and tried to focus on the words in her textbook. The words looked strange to her. English was still difficult, even though she had been in America for 2 years. She was 16 years old and had come to this country. With her family in 2006, her parents worked long hours at their small laundromat on the edge of town. Her father started work at 6 in the morning. Her mother stayed until 9 at night. They wanted a better life for Mincio and her younger brother. They worked hard every single day to make that dream come true. Mincio wore the same 3 shirts to school every week. Her jeans had a small hole near the knee that her mother had sewn closed. Other students wore expensive shoes and new clothes. They carried lunch money and bought hot meals in the cafeteria. Mincio brought rice and kimchi in a plastic container. Sometimes the smell made other students wrinkle their noses and move away from her. She did not have many friends. Her accent made it hard to talk to other kids. They did not understand her sometimes. A few times they had laughed when she pronounced words wrong. So Mincio stayed quiet most of the time. She listened and learned. She was good at math and science. Numbers did not care what language she spoke. Numbers were the same everywhere, but English class was different. English class was her hardest subject. And English class had Ms. Patricia Whitmore. Ms. Whitmore was 52 years old. She had been teaching at Riverside High for 25 years. She wore nice dresses and pearl necklaces. Her blonde hair was always perfect. She smiled at some students and ignored others. Mincio noticed that Ms. Whitmore smiled most at students who looked like her. Students with light skin and English names. Students whose parents were born in America. The bell rang. Class was starting. Ms. Whitmore walked to the front of the room. She carried a stack of papers. These were the book reports they had turned in last week. Mincio felt her stomach twist with worry. She had worked so hard on that report. She had stayed up past midnight for 3 nights. She had used a dictionary to check every word. "Good morning, class," Ms. Whitmore said. Her voice was loud and clear. "I have your book reports graded. Some of you did excellent work. Some of you need to try much harder." She started walking around the room. She placed papers on desks. Mincio saw some students smile when they got their papers back. Others frowned. Jennifer Martinez got an A. She was a smart girl who sat near the front. David Chen got a B+. He nodded, looking satisfied. Then Ms. Whitmore reached Mincio's desk. She dropped the paper down without looking at Mincio's face. Mincio saw the grade written in red ink at the top. C-. Her heart sank. She had never gotten such a low grade before. She picked up the paper with shaking hands. Red marks covered every page. The comments said things like awkward phrasing and incorrect word choice and difficult to understand. Mincio had written about The Great Gatsby. She loved that book. She loved the story of a man who came from nothing and built a new life. She thought she understood that dream. Her family had that same dream. They wanted to build something better too. Ms. Whitmore went back to the front of the classroom. "Now I want to talk about what makes a good book report," she said. "You need to write clearly. You need to use proper English. You need to show that you understand American literature." She looked directly at Mincio when she said proper English. Mincio felt her cheeks burn. "Some of you are still struggling with basic writing skills," Ms. Whitmore continued. "Maybe English literature is too advanced for some students. Maybe some students should focus on more practical subjects." A few students turned to look at Mincio. She wanted to disappear. She stared down at her desk. "Today we will have oral presentations," Ms. Whitmore announced. "You will each stand up and tell the class about your book. Let us see who can express themselves clearly." Mincio's hands started to sweat. She hated speaking in front of the class. Her accent always got stronger when she was nervous. Words got stuck in her mouth. Ms. Whitmore called on students one by one. Jennifer talked about To Kill a Mockingbird. Her presentation was smooth and confident. David talked about Of Mice and Men. He spoke clearly and everyone listened. Then Ms. Whitmore said, "Mincio Park, your turn." Mincio stood up slowly. Her legs felt weak. She walked to the front of the room. 25 students stared at her. Ms. Whitmore sat at her desk with her arms crossed. "I read The Great Gatsby," Mincio began. Her voice was quiet. "It is about a man named Jay Gatsby. He comes from poor family. He wants to make new life in America. Speak up, Ms. Whitmore said. We cannot hear you. Minseo tried to speak louder. Gatsby works very hard. He believes in American dream. He thinks if he works hard, he can have better life. Someone in the back giggled. Minseo felt her confidence crumble. He loves a woman named Daisy, she continued. Her accent was thick now. She could hear it. But Daisy is from rich family. She does not choose Gatsby. In the end, Gatsby dies. His dream dies too. What did you think of the ending? Ms. Whitmore asked. Her tone was cold. I think it is sad, Minseo said. But it is real. Sometimes people work hard and still do not get what they want. But I think Gatsby was brave. He tried. He did not give up his dream. That is a very simple interpretation, Ms. Whitmore said. She stood up and walked toward Minseo. The Great Gatsby is a complex novel about American society. It requires deep understanding of American culture and values. It is not just about working hard. Minseo felt small. She nodded. Perhaps this book was too difficult for you, Ms. Whitmore said. The whole class was silent now. Perhaps you should choose simpler books. Books more suited to your level. I understood the book, Minseo said quietly. Her voice was shaking, but she made herself speak. I understood Gatsby. He was like immigrant. He wanted to belong. He wanted people to see him as equal. Well, you did not show that understanding in your report, Ms. Whitmore said sharply. Your writing was full of errors. Your grammar was poor. Maybe literature is not for people like you. The words hit Minseo like a slap. People like you. She knew what that meant. Stick to what your people are good at, Ms. Whitmore added. She turned away from Minseo and addressed the class. This is why proper English education is so important. We must maintain standards, a few students laughed. Not loud laughs. Quiet giggles. But Minseo heard everyone. She walked back to her seat with her head down. Her eyes burned with tears, but she would not cry. Not here. Not in front of them. The rest of class passed in a blur. Minseo did not hear anything else, Ms. Whitmore said. She just stared at her desk and tried to breathe normally. When the bell finally rang, Minseo grabbed her books and rushed out. She went straight to the bathroom. She locked herself in a stall and let the tears come. She cried quietly, one hand pressed against her mouth so no one would hear. That evening, Minseo sat at the small kitchen table in their apartment. Her mother was still at the laundromat. Her father had just come home and was too tired to talk. Her grandmother was cooking dinner. The apartment smelled like garlic and sesame oil. Minseo tried to do her homework, but she could not focus. She kept hearing Ms. Whitmore's voice. People like you. Not for people like you. Her grandmother noticed something was wrong. What happened? She asked in Korean. She sat down next to Minseo and took her hand. Minseo told her everything. About the grade. About the presentation. About what Ms. Whitmore had said. The tears came again as she spoke. Her grandmother listened quietly. When Minseo finished, her grandmother squeezed her hand hard. Listen to me carefully, her grandmother said. Her voice was strong and serious. That teacher is afraid. Afraid of what? Minseo asked. Afraid of you, her grandmother said. Afraid of your strength. Afraid that you will work harder than she ever did. Afraid that you will succeed where she expects you to fail. Minseo shook her head. I am not strong. I cannot even speak English correctly. You left your home country at 14, her grandmother said. You learned a new language. You help your parents. You study until late at night. You are stronger than that teacher will ever be. But she is right, Minseo whispered. Maybe I am not good at English. Maybe I should focus on other things. Her grandmother stood up. She pulled Minseo to her feet and led her to the bathroom mirror. They stood together looking at their reflections. Look at yourself, her grandmother said. What do you see? I see someone who does not belong, Minseo said. No, her grandmother said firmly. You see someone who belongs everywhere. You see someone with 2 languages, 2 cultures, 2 ways of seeing the world. That teacher has one way. You have many ways. Let her underestimate you. Let her think you are weak. Then prove her wrong. Minseo looked at her reflection for a long time. Her eyes were still red from crying. Her face was tired, but somewhere inside something small and hard was forming. Something like anger, something like determination. I will prove her wrong, Minseo said quietly. Say it louder, her grandmother said. I will prove her wrong. Minseo said again. Louder this time, again. I will prove her wrong, Minseo said. Her voice was strong now. 2 years passed slowly at Riverside High School. Mincio turned 18 in the spring of 2010. She stood in her cap and gown on graduation day. The sun was bright and warm. Families cheered and took pictures. Mincio's parents stood near the back of the crowd. They looked proud but tired. Her father had taken the morning off from work. That almost never happened. Mincio graduated with high honors. She had a 4.0 grade point average in math and science. Her English grades had improved to mostly A's and a few B's. Ms. Whitmore had given her a B- in senior English. Mincio knew she deserved an A, but she did not argue. She just worked harder. During those 2 years, Ms. Whitmore had continued to make small comments, little remarks that cut deep. When Mincio answered a question perfectly, Ms. Whitmore would say, "Good, you are learning." When other students answered, she said, "Excellent work." The difference was small but clear. Mincio noticed everything. Once Ms. Whitmore had told the class about college applications. She looked at the white students and said, "You all should aim high. Apply to the best schools." Then she looked at Mincio and 2 other immigrant students and said, "You should be realistic. Community college is a good option for some people." Mincio had applied to State University anyway. She got accepted, but her parents could not afford it. The tuition was too expensive, so Mincio chose community college, not because Ms. Whitmore suggested it, but because it was the only choice her family could afford. She cried the night she made that decision. Her grandmother held her and said, "Every path leads somewhere. Start here, you will get there." Now graduation was over. Summer began. Mincio needed to earn money for college. She found 3 part-time jobs. She worked at a coffee shop from 6 to 10 every morning. Then she worked at the library from 11 to 3. At night, she helped her parents at the laundromat from 6 to 9. She came home exhausted every day. In August, she started classes at Riverside Community College. She took a full course load, 15 credits, English, math, history, psychology, and education theory. She had decided what she wanted to do with her life. She wanted to become a teacher, not like Ms. Whitmore, a different kind of teacher, the kind who helped students instead of hurt them. Her schedule was brutal. She woke up at 5 in the morning, made coffee at the shop until 10, went to classes until 3, studied at the library until 6, worked at the laundromat until 9, came home and studied until midnight or later. Then she woke up and did it all again. Her hands started to hurt from the constant work. Her eyes were always tired. She drank too much coffee and did not sleep enough. But she kept going. She thought about Ms. Whitmore's words whenever she wanted to quit. "People like you, not for people like you." Those words became fuel for her fire. In her English class at community college, she had a professor named Dr. James Wilson. He was an older black man with kind eyes. He noticed that Mincio worked harder than everyone else. She always sat in the front row. She always did extra credit. Her essays were improving rapidly. One day after class, Dr. Wilson asked her to stay. "Mincio, can I talk to you for a moment?" She nodded, worried she had done something wrong. "You are one of the best students I have ever taught," he said. "Your writing has improved dramatically since the semester started. You should be at a 4-year university." "I cannot afford it," Mincio said simply. "There are scholarships," Dr. Wilson said, "for students like you. Students who work hard and overcome obstacles. Let me help you apply. Students like you." This time those words meant something different. Something good. Dr. Wilson spent hours helping Mincio prepare scholarship applications. He wrote her recommendation letters. He helped her write essays about her experiences, about coming to America, about working 3 jobs, about wanting to help other students who felt like outsiders. In the spring of 2012, Mincio got accepted to State University with a full scholarship. She cried when she read the letter. Her mother cried too. Her father put his hand on her shoulder and said, "You did this. We are proud." That fall, Mincio moved into a tiny dorm room at State University. She was 20 years old. She had made it. She declared her major as Education Administration. She wanted to understand how schools worked. She wanted to learn how to make them better. But university was harder than community college. The classes moved faster. The professors expected more. Mincio still worked 2 part-time jobs to help her family and pay for books. She studied while other students went to parties. She worked while others slept late on weekends. In her education classes, she learned about teaching methods and school policies. She learned about budgets and hiring. She learned about how one teacher could change a student's entire life. For better or worse, she thought about Ms. Whitmore often. In a class about educational equity, the professor talked about teachers who carried unconscious bias, teachers who had lower expectations for minority students, teachers who discouraged instead of encouraged. Mincio raised her hand. "What happens to those teachers?" she asked. "How do we stop them?" The professor sighed. "It is difficult. Teachers have unions and protections. Bad teachers can stay in the system for decades. The best way to create change is to become an administrator. Principals and superintendents have the power to hire, train, and sometimes remove teachers." Mincio wrote that down. She underlined it twice. During her junior year, Mincio started volunteering at an after-school program for immigrant students. She helped kids with homework. She taught them English. She listened to their problems. Many of them told her about teachers who did not believe in them. Teachers who made them feel stupid or unwanted. One girl named Rosa reminded Mincio of herself. She was 15 and had moved from Mexico 2 years ago. She was smart and hardworking, but her English teacher told her she would never go to college. "Do not listen to her," Mincio said firmly. "I had a teacher like that too. She was wrong about me. Your teacher is wrong about you." "But what if she is right?" Rosa asked. Her eyes were full of fear. "She is not," Mincio said. "I promise you. Keep working hard. Prove her wrong. That is the best thing you can do." Rosa came to the program every day after that. Mincio tutored her in English. 2 years later, Rosa graduated high school with honors. She got accepted to 3 universities. She sent Mincio a thank you card with a picture of her acceptance letters. Mincio kept that card. It reminded her why she was doing this. She graduated from State University in 2014 with highest honors. She was 22 years old. At the graduation ceremony, Dr. Wilson was there. He had driven 2 hours to see her walk across the stage. "You did it," he said, hugging her. "I knew you would." "I want to do more," Mincio said. "I want to get a master's degree. Maybe a doctorate." "Then do it," Dr. Wilson said. "You can do anything." Mincio applied to graduate programs in educational leadership. She got accepted to State University's master's program with a graduate assistantship. This meant she could work as a teaching assistant while studying. She would get a small salary and free tuition. The master's program was intense. Mincio took classes about school administration, educational law, and leadership. She wrote papers about closing achievement gaps and supporting diverse students. She did research on teacher bias and its effects on student outcomes. Her thesis was titled, "The Long-Term Impact of Teacher. Discrimination on Immigrant Students." She interviewed 50 students who had experienced discrimination in school. She asked them how it affected their confidence, their grades, and their future plans. The stories broke her heart. But they also made her more determined. Every story sounded like her own story. Teachers who said hurtful things. Teachers who expected less. Teachers who made students feel like they did not belong. Mincio graduated with her master's degree in 2016. She was 24 years old. But she did not stop. She immediately started a doctoral program. She wanted those 3 letters before her name, Dr. Park. She wanted the credibility and authority that came with a PhD. The doctoral program was the hardest thing she had ever done. She took advanced classes in statistics and research methods. She spent hundreds of hours analyzing data. She wrote articles for academic journals. She presented her research at conferences. She lived on very little money. She ate cheap food and wore old clothes. She had no social life. While her old high school classmates were getting married and starting careers, Mincio was buried in books and data. Sometimes she wondered if it was worth it. If all this sacrifice would lead anywhere, then she would remember sitting in Ms. Whitmore's classroom, feeling small, feeling worthless, and she would keep working. Meanwhile, Ms. Patricia Whitmore was still teaching at Riverside High School. She was 56 years old now. She had been teaching for 29 years. She was comfortable and secure in her position. She had tenure. She could not be fired easily. She still taught the same way she always had. She still favored certain students and ignored others. She still made comments about declining standards whenever the school admitted more minority students. In the teacher's lounge, she complained to other older teachers. These kids today do not even try, she said. Especially the immigrants. They expect everything handed to them. The 5 years between 2017 and 2021 were the years when Min Seo became the person she had always wanted to be. These were the years when she stopped being the hurt student and became the powerful leader. In 2017, at just 25 years old, Min Seo got her first job as assistant principal at Lincoln Middle School. Lincoln was on the other side of the state, far from Riverside. It was a struggling school in a poor neighborhood. Most students were Black or Latino. Many came from immigrant families. The building was old and needed repairs. Teacher morale was low. The principal who hired her was a woman named Dr. Sarah Martinez. She was a Latina woman in her 50s who had spent 30 years fighting for better education. She took one look at Min Seo's resume and said, "You have something special. You understand what these kids need because you were one of them." Min Seo worked harder than anyone at Lincoln Middle School. She arrived at 7 in the morning and left at 6 in the evening. She learned every student's name, all 400 of them. She stood in the hallways during class changes and greeted students. She ate lunch in the cafeteria and asked students about their lives. Many students at Lincoln spoke Spanish or Korean or Vietnamese at home. English was their second language. Min Seo understood their struggle in a way other administrators did not. She started an English language support program. She hired tutors and created after-school help sessions. She also started watching teachers closely. Some teachers were excellent. They cared about students and worked hard. But other teachers had given up. They showed movies instead of teaching. They gave worksheets instead of real lessons. They had low expectations. One teacher named Mr. Roberts reminded Min Seo of Ms. Whitmore. He was in his 50s and had been teaching for 25 years. He often said things like, "These kids just do not care about learning." He gave mostly D's and F's. He sat at his desk while students talked and played on their phones. Min Seo observed his classroom 3 times. Each time was worse than the last. Students were bored and disruptive. Mr. Roberts made no effort to engage them. He spoke to them with barely hidden contempt. After the 3rd observation, Min Seo met with him. "Your students are not learning," she said directly. "This needs to change." Mr. Roberts was defensive. "These kids do not want to learn. What am I supposed to do?" "Teach them," Min Seo said. Her voice was calm but firm. "That is your job. If your methods are not working, find new methods. I will support you. I will give you resources and training. But you must try." Mr. Roberts did not like being challenged by someone half his age. But Min Seo was his supervisor now. He had to listen. Over the next month, she required him to attend professional development workshops. She paired him with better teachers who could mentor him. She checked his lesson plans every week. Slowly, reluctantly, Mr. Roberts improved. Not because he wanted to, but because Min Seo did not give him a choice. She made it clear that change or face consequences. Other teachers noticed. The younger teachers especially. They saw that Min Seo held everyone to high standards. She supported good teaching and challenged poor teaching. She believed every student could learn if given the right support. Min Seo also started a mentoring program. She recruited successful adults from the community to mentor at-risk students. Many mentors were immigrants or people of color who had overcome obstacles. They came to the school once a week and met with students. They shared their stories. They showed students that success was possible. A 15-year-old boy named Deshaun was failing most of his classes. He lived with his grandmother because his mother was in prison. He was angry and hostile. Most teachers had given up on him. Min Seo assigned him a mentor named Marcus, a Black businessman who had grown up in the same neighborhood. Marcus met with Deshaun every Tuesday afternoon. At first, Deshaun barely talked, but Marcus was patient. He kept showing up. He kept listening. After 6 months, Deshaun started to change. His grades improved from F's to C's. He stopped getting in fights. He started talking about wanting to graduate. Min Seo watched this transformation and felt her heart swell with hope. This was why she had become an educator. Not to punish students or give up on them, but to help them see their potential, to give them chances that others denied them. By the end of her 2nd year at Lincoln, the school's test scores had improved by 15%. Student attendance was up, discipline problems were down. Parents were happier. The school district took notice. In 2019, when Min Seo was 27, She was promoted to principal of Lincoln Middle School. Dr. Martinez was retiring, and she personally recommended Min Seo as her replacement. The school board agreed. Now Min Seo had even more power to create change. She hired new teachers who shared her vision. She fired teachers who refused to improve after multiple chances. She brought in new programs for arts and music and sports. She made sure every student had access to tutoring and mental health support. She also started getting recognized outside her school. She wrote articles for education journals about working with immigrant students. She presented at conferences about closing achievement gaps. Other principals and administrators wanted to know her methods. In 2020, a national education magazine featured her in an article called Young Leaders Changing Schools. The article included her photo and quotes about her philosophy. "Every student deserves a teacher who believes in them," she said in the interview. "Every student deserves a chance to prove themselves. We cannot give up on kids because they are different or because they struggle." The article spread widely on social media. People shared it and praised her work. Some people from her past saw it, including some of her old high school classmates. They sent her messages on social media. "Congratulations. We always knew you would do great things." Min Seo found these messages ironic. These same people had ignored her in high school. She wondered if Ms. Whitmore had seen the article. She hoped she had. By 2021, Lincoln Middle School was considered one of the best turnaround stories in the state. Test scores had improved by 30% overall. The achievement gap between white students and students of color had shrunk significantly. 90% of students were graduating from 8th grade ready for high school. Min Seo was offered several jobs at bigger schools in wealthier districts. These jobs paid more money and had more resources. But she stayed at Lincoln. These students needed her. She would not abandon them for an easier job. But then something unexpected happened. In November 2021, Min Seo received an email from a colleague. The email contained a link to a job posting, principal position at Riverside High School. Min Seo clicked the link and read the posting carefully. Riverside High was struggling. Test scores had declined for 5 straight years. There were complaints about teacher quality and student treatment. Parents were pulling their kids out and sending them to private schools. The school board was desperate for new leadership. Min Seo felt a strange sensation in her chest. This was her old school. The school where she had cried in bathroom stalls. The school where Ms. Whitmore had humiliated her in front of her peers. The school that had made her feel like she did not belong. She checked the Riverside High website. She looked at the staff directory. There it was. Patricia Whitmore, English Department, still teaching after 31 years. Min Seo sat at her desk for a long time staring at that name. Patricia Whitmore, the woman who had told her that literature was not for people like her. The woman who had suggested she stick to what her people were good at. The woman who had given her a C- on a report she had worked on for weeks. That woman was still teaching. Still influencing students. Still probably hurting kids who looked like Min Seo. Min Seo thought about Deshawn and Rosa and all the other students she had helped over the years. She thought about the students at Riverside High who might be sitting in Ms. Whitmore's classroom right now. Feeling small, feeling worthless, being told they were not good enough. She opened a new document and began to fill out the application. She was Dr. Min Seo Park now. She had a PhD in educational leadership. She had 5 years of experience as an administrator. She had turned around a failing school and made it excellent. She had published research and spoken at conferences. She had recommendations from superintendents and school board members and professors. She was qualified for this job, more than qualified. She was perfect for it, but this was not just about qualifications. This was personal. This was about going back to the place that had tried to break her. This was about making sure no other student had to experience what she had experienced. She filled out every section of the application carefully. She wrote a cover letter explaining her vision for Riverside High. She talked about creating an inclusive culture where every student felt valued. She talked about high expectations for all students regardless of background. She talked about accountability for teachers and support for struggling students. She attached her resume with all her accomplishments. Her doctorate, her publications, her awards, her proven track record of improving schools. At the bottom of the application there was a question. Why do you want to work at Riverside High School? Min Seo paused. She could write something professional and generic, but instead she wrote the truth. I attended Riverside High School as a student from 2006 to 2010. January 10th, 2022. The morning was cold and gray. Min Seo stood in the parking lot of Riverside High School and looked up at the building. It looked exactly the same as she remembered. The same red brick, the same tall windows, the same front entrance where she had walked through nervously every day as a teenager. But everything was different now. She was different. She was no longer Min Seo Park, the poor student with broken English. She was Dr. Min Seo Park, the new principal. She wore a professional navy blue suit. Her hair was pulled back neatly. She carried a leather briefcase. She looked powerful and confident, but inside her stomach was twisting with nerves. In a few minutes, she would meet the staff. In a few minutes, she would see Ms. Whitmore again for the first time in 12 years. Min Seo took a deep breath. She thought about her grandmother's words. Let them underestimate you, then prove them wrong. She had proven them wrong. Now it was time to show them. She walked through the front doors. The hallways were exactly as she remembered. The same lockers, the same bulletin boards, even the same smell of floor cleaner and old books. For a moment she was 16 again, small and scared and trying to disappear. But then she straightened her shoulders. She was not that girl anymore. The secretary in the main office looked up when Min Seo entered. "Dr. Park?" she asked. "Yes," Min Seo said with a warm smile. "Welcome. I am Mrs. Johnson. I have been the secretary here for 15 years. We are so excited to have you." Mrs. Johnson stood and shook her hand. She was a kind-looking woman in her 60s. "The superintendent left some paperwork for you, and the staff meeting is at 9 o'clock in the auditorium. All the teachers will be there." Min Seo nodded. "Thank you. I am looking forward to meeting everyone." She spent the next hour in her new office, the principal's office. She sat behind the large desk and tried to feel settled. The office had belonged to Principal Morrison for 12 years. He had retired after the school's problems became too much to handle. Now this space was hers. At 8:45, Min Seo gathered her notes and walked toward the auditorium. Her heels clicked on the tile floor. Several students were in the hallways, heading to class. A few looked at her curiously. She smiled at them. "Good morning," she said. The students looked surprised that the new principal spoke to them, but they smiled back. "Good morning," they replied. Min Seo entered the auditorium through the back door. The teachers were already gathering. There were about 60 teachers at Riverside High. They sat in small groups talking and drinking coffee. Some looked excited about meeting the new principal. Others looked skeptical or bored. Min Seo scanned the crowd. She was looking for one specific face. And then she saw her. Ms. Patricia Whitmore sat near the back of the auditorium. She was 58 years old now. Her blonde hair had gray in it. She wore a cream-colored sweater and pearls. She was talking to two other older teachers, laughing about something. Min Seo felt a surge of emotion, anger, nervousness, determination, all mixed together. This was the woman who had tried to make her feel worthless. This was the woman who had told her she did not belong. Now Min Seo was her boss. The superintendent, Mr. Davis, was standing at the front of the auditorium. He saw Min Seo and waved her over. "Dr. Park, are you ready?" "Yes," Min Seo said. Her voice was steady. Mr. Davis stepped to the microphone. "Good morning, everyone. Please take your seats. We have an important introduction to make." The teachers quieted down and sat. Min Seo stood to the side of the stage, just out of sight. She watched Ms. Whitmore settle into her seat. Ms. Whitmore was barely paying attention. She was still whispering to the teacher next to her. "As you all know, Principal Morrison retired last month," Mr. Davis said. "The school board conducted an extensive search for his replacement. We interviewed many qualified candidates. We wanted someone with vision, experience, and a proven track record of improving schools. Someone who understands the challenges of diverse student populations and knows how to create positive change." Min Seo took a deep breath. This was it. I am pleased to introduce you to our new principal, Mr. Davis continued. She holds a PhD in educational leadership. She has published research on educational equity. For the past 2 years, she served as principal of Lincoln Middle School, where she improved test scores by 30% and created award-winning programs for English language learners. Please welcome Dr. Minseo Park. Minseo walked onto the stage. The room erupted in polite applause. She smiled and walked to the microphone. But she was watching Ms. Whitmore. Ms. Whitmore's face had gone completely white. Her mouth opened slightly. Her eyes widened in shock. She stared at Minseo like she was seeing a ghost. For just a moment, their eyes met. Minseo saw the recognition in Ms. Whitmore's face, the disbelief, the horror. Ms. Whitmore remembered her. Of course she did. Minseo allowed herself a small, professional smile. Then she turned her attention to the whole room. "Good morning," she said. Her voice was clear and strong. No trace of an accent. She had worked hard to improve her English over the years. "Thank you for that warm welcome. I am honored to be here as your new principal." She paused and looked around the room. Some teachers looked interested. Others looked suspicious. A few looked bored. But everyone was watching her now. "Many of you do not know this," Minseo continued. "But I attended Riverside High School as a student. I graduated in 2010. I sat in these same classrooms. I walked these same hallways. I learned from teachers in this room." She saw several teachers sit up straighter. Ms. Whitmore had gone even paler. "My experience at this school shaped my entire career," Minseo said. "It showed me the power that teachers have. The power to build students up or tear them down. The power to open doors or close them. The power to make students believe in themselves or doubt themselves." The room was completely silent now. Everyone was listening. "I experienced both types of teachers here," Minseo said. Her tone was measured and professional. "I had teachers who saw my potential despite my struggles with English. Teachers who encouraged me and challenged me. Teachers who believed I could succeed. Those teachers changed my life. They are the reason I am standing here today." She paused for effect. She did not look at Ms. Whitmore directly, but she knew Ms. Whitmore was hearing every word. "I also experienced teachers who did not believe in me," Minseo continued. "Teachers who suggested I was not capable. Teachers who had low expectations because of where I came from or how I spoke. Those teachers also changed my life. They made me determined to prove them wrong, and they made me determined to ensure that no other student would have to feel the way they made me feel." The younger teachers were nodding. A few were looking at the older teachers with new understanding. "That is why I am here," Minseo said. Her voice grew stronger. "I am here to make Riverside High a school where every student is valued. Every student is challenged. Every student is believed in, regardless of their background, their language, their race, or their economic status." She outlined her vision for the school. She talked about high expectations for all students, rigorous support programs, professional development for teachers, accountability for everyone, including herself. She spoke for 15 minutes. Her presentation was polished and professional. She had given versions of this speech before. When she finished, there was applause. More genuine this time. Many teachers looked excited. They were ready for change. But some of the older teachers looked uncomfortable. They did not like what they were hearing. After the meeting ended, teachers filed out of the auditorium. Several came up to introduce themselves to Minseo. Young teachers mostly. They shook her hand and told her they were excited about her vision. "We have needed this for a long time," a young Asian woman said. She introduced herself as Miss Chen, the English teacher who had been at Minseo's interview. "Some of the old guard have been doing things the same way for decades. It is time for change." Minseo thanked her. Over Miss Chen's shoulder, she saw Ms. Whitmore trying to slip out a side door. But Minseo was not going to let that happen. "Ms. Whitmore," Minseo called out. Her voice was pleasant but firm. "Could you stay for a moment, please?" Ms. Whitmore froze. She turned slowly. Her face was still pale. She walked over to Minseo reluctantly. Up close, Minseo could see the lines around her eyes, the gray in her hair. She looked older and tired. They stood facing each other. The last time they had stood this close, Minseo had been a student, small and powerless. Now they stood eye to eye, equal height, but not equal power. Minseo had all the power now. "Hello, Ms. Whitmore," Minseo said politely. "It has been a long time." "Yes," Ms. Whitmore said. Her voice was stiff. "I did not realize you were the new principal." "No, I imagine you did not," Minseo said. Her tone was neutral, professional. "I wanted to speak with you briefly. As I mentioned in my speech, I was a student here. In fact, I was in your English class for 2 years, junior and senior year." Ms. Whitmore's jaw tightened. "I teach many students. I do not remember everyone." "I think you remember me," Minseo said quietly. "I remember everything, Ms. Whitmore. Every class, every comment, every grade." Ms. Whitmore looked away. She could not meet Minseo's eyes. "That was a long time ago." "It was," Minseo agreed, 12 years ago. "But I am not here to discuss the past." Over the next 3 months, Minseo observed Ms. Whitmore's classes 6 times. She sat in the back and watched. She took detailed notes. Each observation showed the same patterns. Ms. Whitmore favored white students. She ignored or dismissed students of color. She had lower expectations for immigrant students and students with accents. In February, Minseo sat in on Ms. Whitmore's senior English class. They were discussing The Great Gatsby. Minseo's chest tightened. This was the same book she had presented on 14 years ago. The book that had earned her a C- in public humiliation. A Vietnamese girl named Lynn raised her hand. She had moved to America 3 years ago. Her English was good, but she still had an accent. "I think Gatsby represents the immigrant dream," Lynn said. "He comes from nothing and tries to build a new life. But American society does not fully accept him because of his background." It was a thoughtful interpretation, exactly the kind of insight Ms. Whitmore should have encouraged. But instead, Ms. Whitmore frowned. "That is an oversimplification," Ms. Whitmore said dismissively. "The Great Gatsby is about the corruption of the American dream, not about immigration. You are missing the deeper themes." Lynn looked down at her desk, her face flushed with embarrassment. She did not raise her hand again for the rest of class. Minseo felt anger burning in her chest. This was exactly what Ms. Whitmore had done to her. The same dismissive tone, the same message that certain students did not understand literature, the same crushing of confidence. After class, Minseo asked Lynn to step into the hallway. "That was an excellent observation you made about Gatsby," Minseo said. "You saw something important in the text. Do not doubt yourself." Lynn looked surprised. "But Ms. Whitmore said it was wrong." "It was not wrong," Minseo said firmly. "It was a valid literary interpretation. Great literature can be understood in many ways. Your perspective as someone who understands immigration gives you unique insight. That is valuable. Do not let anyone tell you otherwise." Lynn's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you," she whispered. Minseo squeezed her shoulder gently. Then she went back to her office and added more notes to Ms. Whitmore's file. The file was getting thick. 6 observations. Multiple documented instances of bias. Student complaints. Parent complaints. That same week, a parent named Mrs. Rodriguez came to Minseo's office. She was the mother of Carlos, the boy Minseo had seen embarrassed in class. "Dr. Park, I need to file an official complaint about Ms. Whitmore," Mrs. Rodriguez said. She was angry and upset. "My son comes home from English class every day feeling stupid. He used to love reading. Now he hates it. Ms. Whitmore makes comments about his accent. She gives him lower grades than white students for the same quality work. She treats him like he does not belong in her classroom." Minseo listened carefully. She asked questions. She took notes. "I am so sorry Carlos is experiencing this," she said. "I take this very seriously. I will investigate and take appropriate action." "Other parents have complained too," Mrs. Rodriguez said, "but nothing ever changes. She has been here forever. She has tenure. Everyone says she cannot be touched." "Things are different now," Minseo said. Her voice was quiet but firm. "I promise you I will address this." After Mrs. Rodriguez left, Minseo pulled Ms. Whitmore's full personnel file. She read through 32 years of evaluations. Most were satisfactory. A few praised her knowledge of literature. But there were red flags too. Multiple complaints over the years about favoritism and cultural insensitivity. Former principals had noted concerns but never taken serious action. Ms. Whitmore had been protected by time and tenure. She had outlasted 3 principals. She had learned that if she just waited long enough, any problems would go away. Administrators would leave. Complaining parents would graduate their kids and move on. Nothing ever had real consequences, but Minseo was not going to protect her. Minseo had lived through Ms. Whitmore's teaching. She knew the damage it caused. In early March, Minseo scheduled a formal meeting with Ms. Whitmore. She sent an official notice. Disciplinary discussion regarding teaching performance and student complaints. When Ms. Whitmore arrived at Minseo's office, she looked defensive and angry. She sat down stiffly in the chair across from Minseo's desk. "Thank you for coming," Minseo said professionally. She opened the thick file on her desk. "Ms. Whitmore, I have completed my initial review of your teaching performance. I have observed your classes 6 times. I have received 3 formal parent complaints and multiple informal student complaints. I have reviewed your evaluation history going back 15 years. We need to have a serious conversation about what I have found." Ms. Whitmore crossed her arms. "I have been teaching for 32 years. My methods have been successful for decades. If students are struggling, perhaps they need to work harder. That is part of the problem," Minseo said. She kept her voice calm. "Your observations show a clear pattern of differential treatment based on race and ethnicity. You call on white students more frequently. You give more positive feedback to white students. You dismiss or criticize students of color more harshly for the same behaviors." "That is not true," Ms. Whitmore said. Her face flushed. "I treat all students the same." Minseo opened her notebook. "In my 6 observations, you called on white students 73 times and students of color 18 times. This is despite the fact that students of color make up 40% of your classes. When white students give incorrect answers, you say things like, 'Good try,' or 'You are close.' When students of color give incorrect answers, you say things like, 'Did you do the reading?' or 'Pay closer attention.'" She flipped to another page. "You corrected pronunciation errors from Latino and Asian students 8 times. You never corrected pronunciation from white students even when they also made errors. You assigned Lin Nguyen a B- on an essay that showed the same quality of analysis as essays from white students who received A-. Ms. Whitmore's face was bright red now. "You are taking things out of context. You are looking for problems that do not exist. These are not isolated incidents," Minseo continued. "I have complaints from 6 different families over the past 2 years, all saying the same things. That you favor certain students, that you make their children feel unwelcome, that you have low expectations for minority students." She pulled out the formal complaints and laid them on the desk. "Mrs. Rodriguez says you told her son Carlos that maybe advanced English is too difficult for him. Mr. and Mrs. Patel say you suggested their daughter Priya focus on science instead of literature, because that is what Asian students are good at. Mrs. Johnson says you told her daughter Jasmine that African American students do not usually excel in AP English." Minseo looked up from the papers. "Did you say these things?" Ms. Whitmore was silent for a moment. Then she said defensively, "I was trying to be helpful. I was suggesting areas where those students might find more success. I was being realistic about their abilities." "You were being discriminatory," Minseo said. Her voice was still calm, but there was steel in it now. "You were letting bias and stereotypes determine your expectations. You were telling students they could not succeed based on their race or ethnicity. That is unacceptable. It is harmful, and it is a violation of school policy and educational ethics." Ms. Whitmore stood up suddenly. "This is personal. You are targeting me because of some grudge from when you were a student. You want revenge." Minseo stood too. They faced each other across the desk. "Sit down, Ms. Whitmore." Something in Minseo's tone made Ms. Whitmore sit. She had never heard that kind of authority from someone before. That quiet, absolute certainty of power. "You are right that this is personal," Minseo said, "but not in the way you think. This is personal because I sat in your classroom 14 years ago. I worked harder than anyone in that class. I stayed up until 2 in the morning writing essays. I used a dictionary for every assignment. And you gave me a C- and told me in front of everyone that literature was not for people like me. Ms. Whitmore's face went pale. You told me to stick to what my people were good at. Minseo continued. Her voice was quiet but intense. You made me feel small and worthless and stupid. You tried to kill my dreams before they could even begin. And you did not just do it to me. You did it to dozens of students over 32 years. Maybe hundreds. She leaned forward slightly. But here is what you do not understand, Ms. Whitmore. I am not doing this because of what you did to me. I am doing this because you are still doing it. Lynn and Carlos and Jasmine and Priya. You are still crushing students the way you crushed me. That is why I am here, not for revenge, but to make sure you do not hurt another student ever again. Ms. Whitmore was shaking now. I did not mean to hurt anyone. I was just being honest. Some students are not cut out for certain subjects. That is just reality. That is not reality, Minseo said. That is bias. That is racism. You are using stereotypes to justify low expectations, and those low expectations become self-fulfilling prophecies. Students perform poorly because you treat them like they will perform poorly. You see what you expect to see. She sat back down. Ms. Whitmore, you have a choice. You can acknowledge these problems and commit to changing, or you can refuse and face termination proceedings. 6 months passed. It was now September 2022. Minseo had been principal of Riverside High School for 8 months. The changes were beginning to show. Test scores had improved slightly. Student satisfaction surveys were more positive. Parent complaints about discrimination had dropped significantly, but the biggest change was in Ms. Whitmore's classroom. Minseo had observed her classes twice that fall. Each time she saw real effort. Not perfect teaching, but honest effort to do better. Ms. Whitmore was calling on all students more equally. She was giving more positive feedback. She was being more patient with students who struggled. The change was slow and sometimes awkward. Old habits were hard to break, but she was trying. One afternoon in late September, Minseo sat in on Ms. Whitmore's junior English class. They were reading Their Eyes Were Watching God by Zora Neale Hurston. This was a new addition to the curriculum. Ms. Whitmore had never taught books by authors of color before. She had always stuck to the traditional canon, but Minseo had required all English teachers to include more diverse literature. A black girl named Destiny raised her hand. I love this book, she said. It is the first time I have read something in English class where the characters talk like my family, where the experiences feel real to me. Minseo watched Ms. Whitmore carefully. How would she respond? Would she dismiss Destiny's personal connection? Would she say the book was less literary than the classics? But Ms. Whitmore surprised her. That is wonderful, Destiny, she said. Her voice was genuine. Literature should speak to your own experiences. That is what makes it powerful. Can you tell us more about what resonates with you? Destiny's face lit up. She talked about the themes of finding your voice and independence. Other students joined the discussion. Students of all backgrounds. They were engaged and excited. They were actually learning. After class, Minseo caught Ms. Whitmore in the hallway. That was a good class, Minseo said. Ms. Whitmore looked uncomfortable. Thank you, she said stiffly. She started to walk away. Ms. Whitmore, Minseo said, can we talk for a moment? In my office? Ms. Whitmore's shoulders tensed. Did I do something wrong? No, Minseo said. I just want to talk. They walked to Minseo's office in silence. When they were both seated, Minseo closed the door. She looked at Ms. Whitmore for a long moment. The older woman looked tired. The past 6 months had been hard on her, having to change teaching methods she had used for decades, having to admit she had been wrong, having to face the harm she had caused. You have completed all your required training, Minseo said. You have met with your mentor every week. You have made significant improvements in your teaching. Your recent observations have been satisfactory. Ms. Whitmore nodded stiffly. She did not look happy. She looked exhausted. I want to ask you something, Minseo continued, and I want an honest answer. Why did you treat students like me the way you did? Why did you have such low expectations for minority students? Ms. Whitmore was quiet for a long time. Minseo waited. Finally, Ms. Whitmore spoke. Her voice was quiet and strained. I grew up in a different time, she said. Things were different when I was young. There were clear lines, clear expectations. I thought I was helping by being realistic, by not giving students false hope. She looked down at her hands. But that is not the real reason. The real reason is that students like you made me uncomfortable. You worked so hard. You cared so much. You studied until midnight while I went home at 3:30 and forgot about school. You had 2 languages while I only had 1. You had experienced real hardship while my biggest problem was deciding what to have for dinner. Min Seo listened silently. This was the first time Ms. Whitmore had been truly honest. You reminded me that I had stopped growing, Ms. Whitmore continued. That I had stopped trying. That I was coasting on tenure and seniority. I resented that. So I told myself that students like you did not belong in advanced classes, that you were not good at literature, that you should focus on other things. It was easier than admitting that you were better than me in the ways that mattered. You had drive. You had purpose. You had hunger to learn. I had lost all of that years ago. She finally looked up at Min Seo. Her eyes were red. I convinced myself I was being helpful, but I was really just protecting my own ego, and I hurt so many students in the process, including you. Min Seo felt a tightness in her chest. This was the truth she had always suspected but never heard confirmed. Ms. Whitmore had not been cruel out of ignorance. She had been cruel out of fear. Fear of being shown up by students who worked harder than she did. I am sorry, Ms. Whitmore said. Her voice cracked. I am sorry for what I did to you. I am sorry for the C- I gave you when you deserved an A. I am sorry for embarrassing you in front of the class. I am sorry for telling you that literature was not for people like you. I was wrong. Completely and terribly wrong. Tears ran down her face now. You proved me wrong in every possible way. You got your PhD. You published research. You became a principal at 29. You are everything I told you that you could not be. And I am so deeply ashamed of what I did to you. Min Seo felt her own eyes burning with tears. She had waited 14 years to hear this apology. But now that it was here, she felt something unexpected. Not satisfaction. Not victory. Just sadness. Sadness for all the wasted years. Sadness for all the students who had been hurt. Sadness for the teacher Ms. Whitmore could have been if she had chosen differently. Thank you for apologizing, Min Seo said quietly. I accept your apology. But I need you to understand something. I did not come back here for revenge. I did not come back here to make you suffer. I came back here to protect the students you might hurt. She leaned forward. Lynn and Carlos and Jasmine and Destiny, they deserve better than what you gave me. They deserve a teacher who believes in them, who challenges them, who sees their potential instead of their limitations. I know, Ms. Whitmore whispered. I see that now. These past 6 months have been the hardest of my career, but also the most important. I have had to look at myself honestly for the first time in years. And I did not like what I saw. Change is hard, Min Seo said, especially when you have been doing something the same way for decades. But it is not too late to be better. Ms. Whitmore nodded. She wiped her eyes. I have decided to retire at the end of this school year. I am 59. I have put in my 33 years. It is time. Min Seo was not surprised. She had expected this. What will you do? I do not know, Ms. Whitmore said. Maybe I will volunteer. Tutor students who need extra help. Maybe I can use what I have learned these past months to actually help instead of harm. She stood up to leave. Then she turned back. Dr. Park, Min Seo, thank you. For what? Min Seo asked. For not giving up on me, Ms. Whitmore said. You could have just fired me. Made an example of me, but you gave me a chance to change. A chance to be better. Not everyone would have done that. I believe people can change, Min Seo said. Not everyone. But some people, if they truly want to. Ms. Whitmore nodded. Then she left. That evening, Min Seo sat in her office after everyone else had gone home. She thought about the conversation with Ms. Whitmore. She had gotten the apology she had wanted for so long, but it did not feel the way she had imagined. There was no triumph, no sense of revenge completed, just a quiet sadness and a quiet hope. Sadness for what had been, hope for what could be. In the spring of 2023, Ms. Whitmore gave her retirement speech at a staff meeting. She stood at the front of the room and looked out at her colleagues. I have been teaching at Riverside High for 33 years, she said. For most of those years, I thought I was a good teacher. I knew my subject. I maintained order in my classroom. I followed the curriculum, she paused. But I was not a good teacher. I let my own biases and fears dictate how I treated students. I had lower expectations for some students based on their race, their ethnicity, their language. I told students they were not capable when I should have been helping them succeed. I hurt students when my job was to help them. The room was completely silent. This was not a typical retirement speech. This past year, Dr. Park has required me to confront these failures, Ms. Whitmore continued. It has been painful and humbling. I have had to admit that I was wrong, that I caused harm, that I need to change even after 3 decades of teaching. She looked directly at Min Seo, who was sitting in the front row. Dr. Park is a former student of mine. I did not treat her well. I told her she was not good enough. I tried to limit her dreams. I was completely wrong about her. She went on to achieve more than I ever did, and she came back here not to punish me, but to ensure I never hurt another student the way I hurt her. Ms. Whitmore's voice was strong and clear. If you are a teacher who has been here a long time like me, I challenge you to ask yourself hard questions. Are you truly seeing all your students? Are you giving everyone equal opportunities? Are your expectations based on ability or on bias? Are you still growing or just going through the motions? She took a deep breath. I am retiring because I am tired. But more than that, I am retiring because this school needs teachers who believe in every student. Teachers like Dr. Park was fortunate to have alongside the ones like me. I hope I have learned enough this year to volunteer and tutor in my retirement.